It's a good letter, you know. He's talking about home life, addressing Aunt Georgia, you know, and said, she says, I guess I am still a baby at heart, but you are the one that spoiled me. I'll close for now, for this time, but be sure and write. And don't worry about me, for I am as healthy as the day is long. That was it. His letter was mostly about his family. Of course, that war changed everything. Nothing was the same after that time. Everybody was pulling for the war. There was no dissension, no arguing about what had to be done. Everybody knew what had to be done, and they were doing it. And I look back on that time, the history of our country is one of its highest moments, when there was no dissension, but they were concentrating on the boys in the Army. And you know, from that point on, anytime a soldier on the street needed anything, there was a civilian there to help him and to pay for his food or anything that they could do. That was the way the civilian population reacted to this war, and it was a beautiful thing to see. It really was. I remember the train going to and from Washington, and trains were always crowded then. And people would come in with a suitcase and they'd sit. I had a seat on them, incidentally. I got there early, but they'd set that suitcase by me, and then they would talk. We would talk to one another. And that's the way it was in the Army. Nobody was a stranger then. We were all sharing the same thing, and we wanted nothing more than to be able to go home again. And it was just amazing, you know, the spirit of that time. I don't think it can ever be replicated, because it was just a sweet and wonderful time of inspiration of our troops. But they didn't really know just exactly what lay ahead, but whatever it was, everybody wanted to be in on it. So many wanted to be in the Air Force, but they wound up in the infantry because they couldn't meet the standards for a pilot. Yes, this is the only acknowledgement we had from the Army, other than the notification of his demise or missing in action, was about all we heard from the Army. Of course, the Army had all it could handle in dealing with personnel and such as that, so you couldn't expect too much, and that's the way it turned out. You know, it was several weeks before we knew that Harry had been shot down. But they talked about the plane and the people that came out on parachutes. I said, one of those is Harry, because he was up a turret quarter and he had the best means of leaving the plane, which he did, I'm sure, in a hurry. And he was shot in the arm while coming down, I believe. That's about all we learned from the lieutenant who survived all this, that Harry was in a great deal of pain when they landed from being shot in the arm. And the lieutenant we had, he says, this is a story. We're going to tell them we were stationed at such and such a place, and we would all agree with that. But I think as soon as we got in there and they started interrogating, they knocked that idea out of sight. You know, they wouldn't believe anything we said. And we had dreams. I remember George telling me about one, and he was talking to Harry, and Harry was going somewhere, and he said, why can't I go with you, Harry? He said, no, I've got to go on my own. And that just broke me down, you know. And so it was so real for George to have a dream like that his brother Harry talked with, but Harry says, no, you can't go with me, I've got to go alone. And that was heartbreaking. And so he disappeared from view, and that was the dream that my brother had about Harry. And we cried a lot about it. And I remember him saying that George and I became very close. And in writing, he says, when I got the word, he said, I went behind the barracks and I cried my heart out, you know. And it was very sad. George and I became very close during that time because we shared the love and we had for one another, and George was my protector from the time I... It's a good letter, you know. He's talking about home life, addressing 8 Georgia, and said,